I, 39 male, have been to my wife, 36 female, for 17 years, and married for 11. Since early on in our relationship, we practiced various forms of ethical non-monogamy due to her wanting to explore her bisexuality and not having any relationship experience. I was her first everything. She started with another girl, and after that ended, she wanted to see another guy. I wasn't thrilled, but I did my best to work through my jealousy and grow. She was fine with me seeing other girls, so I didn't want to have a double standard and be hypocritical. We learned to communicate our feelings, our fears, and our fantasies. For many years, we found this had helped deepen our trust and our bond by sharing experiences we had together or seeing others. Honestly, it made me feel like our relationship was bulletproof. Not to say we didn't have hurdles along the way, but it felt like we had unlocked some secret code that made us extremely close. Best friends, lovers, and soulmates. Fast forward to 2019. We had been working with a fertility clinic for a few years to try and start a family. We were approaching the beginning procedures when COVID paused things per the facility. She decided to have one more fling before we pulled the trigger on the kid while things were paused. She said she felt that once we had a kid and she became a mom, it would change her outlook on things, and she wanted to take advantage of it. I understood and agreed. She encouraged me to do the same. Things moved slowly and cautiously with COVID. She ran into a guy she had talked with for over a month, planned to meet, and he never showed. I wasn't having any luck either, so I figured we'd call it done. This was for fun, not a necessity. But she wouldn't give it up. She found another guy, and when things didn't work out, she found another guy who she ended up seeing for a while. It was strange and unlike her, but I chalked it up to her just feeling the pressure of being a mom and wanting to get things out of her system, as well as feeling a bit rejected from being stood up by the first guy. Over the summer of 2019, I decided to try and fix my health a bit. I had always been overweight, but had been losing weight since we met. I was probably 315 pounds when we met, and at this time was about 220 pounds. I had been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes a few years before, but despite losing some weight and cutting some sugar, I was still not as healthy as I could have been, hence the fertility clinic. Trying to reverse some of the damage my high sugar had caused, wanting to be healthy for her and the kid, and feeling some pressure from her chasing down other guys, I decided to get my ish together and get healthy. I changed my diet and exercise, dropping about 30 to 40 pounds in a year. Come to the fall of 2021, and her fling with the third guy ends. We're still working with the fertility clinic after some setbacks, but by the spring of 2022, we're on track for IVF after IUI didn't pan out. However, we're nervous about the risks and the cost, and unsure how to proceed with the Supreme Court overturning of Roe v. Wade and its effects on fertility treatment options. We weren't sure if starting a family was the right choice for us anymore. We both had gotten healthier in the last year. I was down to about 160 pounds at this point, and enjoyed going out and living a little more after all the COVID lockdowns. I honestly felt that we were financially, physically, and relationally fit, at the peak of our relationship. Things had changed so much, and our freedom in not having kids had us reprioritizing and redeciding. So I was surprised when she told me she had been talking to a guy, AP, for a few days. I had no idea she was looking in the first place. But she seemed excited, so I wanted to support her. A few weeks later, we were on a romantic staycation I had planned at a resort in town for our anniversary. On that trip, she admitted she had started developing feelings for him. It wasn't unusual for her to establish a connection with the people she got into ENM relationships with. But this was different, and a lot more polyamorous than previous situations. I told her I had reservations, but would support her if she wanted to move forward. She planned their first meetup before the trip was over. Whenever we sleep with someone else, we walk each other through what happened. For my wife, any stories of me with other girls had been a turn-on for her. Hearing about her escapades was more about understanding the accounts of the encounter rather than a fetish for me, which she was aware of. Between our anniversary trip and their first meetup, she had gone from gushing about him to mum's the word. When we discussed their first meetup, the details were short and vague, which was unusual. The only thing I could pull out of her was that she had taken advantage of the fact that she was on birth control as part of the fertility treatments and forewent using protection, as we had discussed. I was mad, but she thought I just wanted her to use it so she wouldn't get pregnant and swore she wouldn't do that again. I was suspicious of all of it but tried to understand. Until this point, as far as I knew, she had always been honest, never hid anything from me, and had no reason to. Things escalated quickly. They were constantly texting late into the night. They even started talking on the phone. My wife hates talking on the phone to anyone. Her usually anxious self, anxiety that was so bad we had left our social life behind, was breaking out, doing things she couldn't or didn't want to do before. And she kept mentioning how great it was that AP could help her, despite years and years of trying myself. all the work I had done to get in shape, and she found an AP who ran marathons. She seemed so happy, and I didn't want to get in the way, even though I couldn't understand how I didn't make her that happy anymore. It felt like she was moving on, but I tried to convince myself it was just the new relationship excitement that ENM poly relationships often experience. I tried confronting her about it multiple times, but she would make it feel like I was just jealous and insecure, and insisted I had nothing to worry about. I convinced myself that was the case, and tried to keep my feelings to myself, and work through them alone to avoid ruining her experience. Things continued to decline as we started pulling away from each other. There was constantly the elephant in the room. Despite it, she continued to see him, noticing I was uncomfortable but not caring enough to prioritize our relationship, as we had always assured each other we would. We would try and talk, but it would start to cause a fight. I finally told her I wanted her to do what she wanted and be happy, figuring we'd work it out. Again, I was still convinced I was being jealous and insecure about the whole thing, ignoring the flags. Within weeks, through May into August 2022, we went from feeling like a couple to feeling like roommates. I had so much to say to her I couldn't even get it out in a conversation. After months of living together like strangers, I decided to make a bit of a stand. She had a date planned at the house, so I left like I usually did. But I left her an 11-page letter pouring my heart out in her nightstand and left to stay at a hotel for a few days, unsure what decision she would make. She read the letter, we talked it out for a day or so, and I came home so we could figure out how to rebuild. I told her I wanted her to be her, and told her if continuing to see AP was important to her, then we could try and work it out. She was excited about that and happy I was being so flexible. Part of my conditions were that I wanted to be filled in on what I had missed over the last months that we hadn't been communicating. Transparency was our thing, and she hadn't been. She agreed. And this is where things start to get even crazier. We had never hidden our phones from each other, but out of respect, we had never really looked at each other's text conversations with people we saw. Instead, we would show them to each other willingly, which hadn't been the case this time. Knowing how much they texted, and knowing that my wife isn't great at remembering details, I suggested I read through the texts as an easy way to catch up. She wasn't keen on this, but reluctantly gave in after disappearing to the bathroom for 20 minutes, spurring me to joke about her deleting the evidence. I read through the messages, and it took hours and hours to skim through. There were so many things I learned that I didn't know. I was a bit dumbfounded. The way she talked to him, she was so enamored and bewildered. I honestly don't know if she ever spoke to me like that, but something didn't seem right while I was reading. The messages didn't always line up. She just seemed so shady about my questions and nervous about things while I read through them. The next day, I told her I was curious about how many texts they had exchanged, and told her I would look and see how many compared to her and me, out of curiosity. She agreed, so I looked. I was shocked that in a few months, they had exchanged tens of thousands of text messages, but I was more shocked to find that the number of text messages backed up the day before I read them was higher by almost a few hundred. She had deleted messages when she ran off to the bathroom. I recovered them via the backup and learned all kinds of details she hadn't disclosed. He had slapped and choked her, something that wasn't allowed. She had hidden buying lingerie and wearing it for him. She even met up with him one night to take care of him in a parking lot. She never returned to using protection, despite saying she would and telling me she was. Hell, even the night I wrote the letter pouring out my heart, she sent him messages saying how she wished he was there in bed, cuddling her that night while I was crying in a hotel room. There were so many things she hid from me, and so many secrets I uncovered. I decided to see if she would come clean on her own. I kept the newfound details to myself, and that night when she got home from work, we discussed spending the weekend making sure we had talked everything out, and that she would have told me everything I should know that happened between them by the end of the weekend. I told her that it was a safe space, that I just wanted her to be honest, that she had nothing to fear, and that all I wanted was the truth, so we could resolve this and move on. I even tried to float scenarios similar to the details I had learned, hoping it would trigger her to come clean. By Monday, she hadn't confessed anything. Furious and defeated, I crafted another letter, along with a copy of the text she deleted, and left it for her to find when she came home from work, packed some of my things, and left. She called, panicked and distraught. She begged me to come back, said it was all a mistake, that she was scared and trying to protect my feelings. She at least had the decency to call it off with AP. We had a couple of fights, one where she literally held a knife to her wrist and threatened to kill herself if I left. It was just an attention grab. She's not suicidal by any means. I moved to a hotel, then an Airbnb for about a month. Since I work from home, we decided I should move back home, and she would move out so I could take care of our 14-year-old senior dog. During this time, we started counseling to work through things and see if we could reconcile. Then, at the beginning of November, Our dog got sick and passed away. We were both devastated. He had been the kid we never had, and the grief was so heavy. I was so broken by everything, and we tried to help each other through it, leaning on our friendship. That bled into the holidays, her moving back home, etc. The normalcy was distracting from her infidelity and the loss. But once January came, and the grief of our dog became more manageable, I realized I still wasn't okay with what she did. We try. We go to therapy every Wednesday. She's unlocked a lot of past trauma, which I'm happy about for her. But I feel like she's using it as a scapegoat for what happened. Maybe I'm just that jaded. More infuriating is her saying that she thought my getting into shape was so I could leave her behind, and that the decision not to have kids broke her. While I understand this, it feels like a load of bull since she knew why I was getting in shape, and we discussed at length about not having a kid. She's claiming she needed an escape from feeling like I was leaving her behind, and she failed me, herself, and her parents by deciding not to have a kid, even though the bulk of it was medical issues on my end that made that decision for us. There's just so much that contradicts itself. So many pieces don't add up. Like, what was she protecting my feelings from? What was there to protect if I knew she was sleeping with him? How could you disrespect me and our relationship so profoundly and so quickly? What did you hide from me with the other people you saw? I feel like the conspiracy meme guy, adding more pins and threads every time I think about it. Sometimes I fear I already know the answers and don't want to admit it to myself. Furthermore, I feel trapped now. We're living together, playing house essentially. On good days, it's okay, but there are still so many days that I want to cut and run. I care about her, and I'll always have a love for her, despite the hurt. But I don't know if I'm in love with her anymore, or if I ever will be again. Or maybe I'm still mad, hurt, and betrayed, and my walls are so high I can't see past them. I'm giving the therapy process time and being as patient as possible, but I honestly don't know what to do. In the last few sessions, the therapist has mentioned it can take years for me to get beyond the PTSD of this and be okay. I don't know if I can live this way for that long to find out that I'm still not okay. I can't get past this, and we both wasted years trying. But she's trying so hard, putting in the effort, and I can see and feel genuine remorse for what happened. I'm not sure what I'm asking or seeking by posting this other than to see what input you all can provide, especially anyone who has been in a similar situation. I'm just feeling lost, adrift, and stuck. The therapist has been helpful, but I'm still not sure it's going to resolve this. I worry that I am chasing what was. In the same breath, I'm aware this will never be what it was. I honestly feel like that was stolen from me, and I'm being forced to settle for what this will be. It almost feels worse because she had permission to sleep with him, and she took advantage of it. I'm doing my best to be objective here, but it's tough to see past it all. Thanks for reading and taking the time. Appreciate any feedback and am happy to answer any questions. Now for the top comments. This isn't meant as a criticism of the lifestyle you decided to share with your wife, because you are free to do as you please. However, pragmatically, a non-monogamous relationship of any type invites feelings and relationships to occur with people outside of the marriage. I don't really have much advice to offer simply because there are various ways of approaching this problem, and all of them are very personal in preference. You can leave and seek a different type of relationship. You can leave and seek a similar relationship, but with a partner that will play by the rules you both create. You can stay and play this out. You can try to work on things in a cooperative manner, or you can try to get back at her by doing the same thing and let the relationship continue out of nostalgia. So she needed an escape from feeling like failing you, and decided to do the most disgusting, disrespectful, and cruel thing a partner could do. LOL, yeah, I wouldn't want her either. Dude, whatever you see from her is fake. She is desperate, not empathetic. She used you. She will continue. She has no boundaries. I'm sorry. Let me ask this question, and when you honestly answer to yourself, you might have the clarity you need to decide what to do. While you were bending over backwards, jumping through hoops, sacrificing your happiness to make her happy and help her meet her emotional needs, what was she doing for your happiness and emotional needs? If you can find the answer to that, you'll know how to proceed. It sounds like your relationship has run its course, but you're not willing to admit that. Man, what did I just read? I could almost predict the unresolved mental health issues combined with the huge life changes and poor communication skills would be the root cause. Sometimes the damage is too deep. Y'all fafoed instead of actually tackling any trauma, and now she's left you with new trauma while she tries to manage her old ones. Sometimes it's just too much. It went on too long unaddressed. You may never feel the same way about her. Reconciliation is a gift, and unfortunately the statistics say very few couples survive it. -15%. Odds are against y'all being together within 5 years. Yeah, I mean, I knew she had some trauma, and so do I, But it seems like everything escalated when she found this guy. And I agree, we dodged bullets with this for a long time. Looking back, it's easier to see with clarity, but while we were doing ENM, it seemed to bring us closer, until it didn't. It 180'd real bad. Thank you all for taking the time to listen to today's story. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. Stay tuned and I'll see you in the next one.